Good morning, everybody. I'm Beth Pollock with Caribu, and I'm here today with Lauren Grabois Fischer. She's a children's book author who has just published a new book that is featured in the Caribu app. She also has many other books featured in the Caribu app as part of her publishing company, the Bee Books. The Bee Books relate to the idea of just being yourself, and they really encourage kids to have confidence and to take pride in what it means to be themselves. Thanks for coming and joining us today, Lauren. Do you want to share with us the cover of your book?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for that introduction. So this is my new book, Life.
Wow.
And this was inspired by the relationship between my grandfather and my son.
Great. You know, when I read the book, I was really inspired by all of the descriptions of family relationships and the feeling of gratitude, both like in the illustrations and in the text. And so I wanted to ask you if you could share a little bit about your family background and about what inspired the book and inspired those feelings and that message.
Yeah, thank you so much. So this book was actually one of the most important books out of all of my books. This is my 6th book. And this one, my grandpa was turning 90 in January of a year ago. So he's 91 now. And I just remember saying, I want to give him something to say thank you, because my grandpa has been such an important person in my life. And he's somebody who has been my biggest supporter of my poetry, of my writing. And he's always been that person for me. Mm-hmm. And my grandmother, his wife, passed away 8 years ago. And that was devastating in my life. And my granny just passed away in June. But I'm 39. I'm blessed to have a grandfather in my life. And to me, watching my children with their grandparents, with my mom, with my husband's mom, with my dad, with my grandpa, with them having a great grandfather, there's nothing like it. And to me, I think family is so important. And it's so important that we value that and we show gratitude and we express it. And so this book was really showing that. It was representing that important part of my life.
Wow, thank you. It's great to hear that you've had the chance to meet so many of your grandparents and have them share in your life and in your children's lives. As you might know, it's Hispanic Heritage Month as well, and it's almost the Jewish high holidays. And so I know that your background is a mix of cultures. And so I wanted to know if you could share a little bit about that, especially during this time, thinking about how the different cultures in your background have played a role in your life and what family means to you.
Yeah, so I happen to be a Jubin. My mom was born in Cuba. My grandma, I don't know if you've heard that term before.
That's a great term.
So my whole family is Jewish, everyone from different places, from France, from Russia, from Cuba, from everywhere. And actually, funny enough, I teach my children. And today my son, we were talking about cultures and traditions. And I said how lucky he is that his grandmother from my husband's side is from Denmark and his grandfather was from Hungary. And he's got everything. Like, I just think that's such a beautiful part of life, like being a blend. So I grew up in a bilingual home. My dad spoke only English, but my mom and my grandmother spoke Spanish to us. And to me, it was such a blessing. Like, I feel like my grammar in Spanish is horrendous, but I can speak it. You could put me in any country and I can get by. And it's such an important, I grew up with arroz con pollo and Cuban food and plátanos maduros and like all the things that were so fun growing up. Actually, in the book, when we go through the book later, I threw in jupiña, which was a drink that my grandparents used to give us, a pineapple soda.
Wow.
And we used to have fruit salad. And so like I threw in little things in the book. Also in one of the scenes, there was a Shabbat dinner, so it tied in the Judaism. But at the Shabbat dinner, there was a turkey because my birthday's on Thanksgiving. So like we'll throw those things in a little bit later. But to me, I think it is so beautiful to be from different backgrounds. I think that that's why I write what I write. That's why I write books about acceptance and love, because we should be embracing those differences. And we want to be different. That's what makes us so beautiful. That's what makes us unique. And that's what makes us interesting. So I don't know if that explained it, but.
No, that's such a powerful message. Will any of those foods like make any appearances on your table in the next few weeks for any of the holidays or celebrations?
So actually last night I made picadillo, which is a Cuban dinner. My husband loves it. That's his favorite meal that I make. What else? Well, we're making brisket for tomorrow night for Rosh Hashanah. My mother-in-law is going to make it. and any other things. I gave up dairy, sadly enough. So I had to give up flan, and I had to give up tres leches, which were my favorites, and
Oh,
condensed milk. My grandma used to pour condensed milk on everything, on ice cream, on, I don't know if you've ever had condensed milk, but it is, okay, it's like pure everything, pure heaven. And I haven't had it in years because I had to give up dairy.
oh wow.
So yeah, but my kids, they're growing up with it and they don't even realize it. It's just, they're growing up speaking Danish, they're growing up hearing Spanish and everything in one home. So it's really cool.
Are there any Cuban Jewish traditions that are special for your family, or something that comes kind of uniquely from that part of the world or from that culture?
So I'm not a dancer, but my whole family loves to dance. So I can't give you that one from me personally, but my whole family loves to salsa. My sisters love to, my grandpa loves to, my grandma loves to, my mom loves it. My aunt loves it. It's kind of just blended. To me, it's all a blend. Nothing feels like a different, does that make sense? Like nothing
Yeah,
feels
yeah.
separate. It all just feels like a mixture.
Nice.
And it feels just right. Like nothing feels like, oh, this is just my Jewish side or this is my Cuban side. It's kind of just a mix. Like we have challah with picadillo. We have, like, it's just put together.
That's
And
so
I think
special.
that's the fun part of it,
Wow.
right?
That's just great to think about. It's making me hungry just thinking about it. And I
I
miss
have
dancing
leftovers.
too, because I love to dance. Is
You
that one
do?
of the reasons? I know in some of your books as well, you have Spanish translations, or you have their books are bilingual. Is that one of the reasons
Yeah.
why you chose to make some of the books bilingual?
Yes. So my first book, Be Who You Were Meant to Be, I decided to honor my heritage in that first book. And for printing purposes, it was really a challenge to do two languages. So for that reason, I haven't done it again, but I've been asked, and I might just eventually one day when this is like a big company, and I might have it just translated completely to a separate book in Spanish or in whatever language is wanted. But yeah, that first book, I really wanted to honor it. And my books originally were only board books. And
Right.
so I had it as a flip-sided book. So I wanted to make the importance on both languages. So it started in Spanish on one side and then English on the other. And it met in the middle.
That's great. Yeah, I think so many kids are learning both languages in this country at this time. So it's really special to have the chance to read both. All right, well, we're going to just take a look at your new book on the Caribu app. So I'm just going to transition. All right, so we're now looking at the opening pages of the book. And here we have a dedication. And here we have sort of the opening pages. Do you want to share anything about the dedication or what you noticed on the opening?
I do. So this book was actually one of my longest books that took to take form. And I kept saying, why? Why is it taking so long? Why is it taking so long? I wanted it for my grandpa's 90th, and then he turned 91. I wanted it for that. And it just wasn't coming to fruition. And I was getting frustrated, but at the same time, it was coming out so perfectly. So I just had to go with it. And then in March, as we all know, the world really changed. And we started hearing about this corona, right? At the time, that's what we were calling it. And at the same time as we were kind of introduced to the idea, my father-in-law, who was a Holocaust survivor, got sick. He woke up one day on March 12th with a cough and a fever. And I remember saying, oh my God, maybe it's that corona thing. Like maybe you should check. And at the time, really nobody knew anything. And they said, no, it can't be that. He doesn't have shortness of breath. Long story short, he did have it. He passed away on April 5th. And my father-in-law was a very important part of my life and my children's lives. We called him Superman because he could do anything. And so it was something that in my heart, I knew I wanted him to be in that book. So the book was inspired by my grandfather and my son, but it was also a very important part of our life to have my father-in-law in it. So we added him in. I'll show you as we go through the book, but he was a professional soccer player in his 20s in Europe. And we called him Superman, so we threw that character in. And he was always going to be in the book. There's one scene where they're playing dominoes, and I even showed him the picture, and he said to me, that doesn't look like me. That guy's old. And so that page is still in it, but I changed it a little bit, and I'll show you when we get to it.
Okay, wow.
But
Thank you for sharing that story. It must have been a really hard time, and it's so wonderful that you were able to bring his story as well to the book.
Thank you. So I want to say one thing before you turn. That chair that my grandfather is sitting on is the chair that my grandparents, they had 2 chairs that matched, sat on my entire childhood. And I needed the real chair with the knob and everything right there. So that chair is very special. So it needed.
There's so many of us that have these special memories of sitting in our grandparents' chairs. And those little details like the knob or the smell of the chair or the texture of the chair really bring back those special childhood memories and a sense of nostalgia. So I like how you added those details. It's really special. So here we have the chair again. That's great.
The chair again. It's making its mark in the whole book. So on this page, so also I'm going to say my grandpa wears suspenders. Everything about this is him. He wears a hat that I gave him that says best grandpa. Those are my children on the right. I threw my children in there. And that's my monkey that I've had since I was 1. I named him Michael. As we go through the book, and for those of you who read it, I'll kind of explain it later if you ask me about the concept behind the book, but it's important. Just those little things that I threw in.
It's really sweet. And I'm sure so many people can relate to those childhood stuffed animals and of course the Legos. So.
Oh, yes.
Here we have this wonderful family dinner. Is this the turkey you were talking about?
Yes. So that is representative of my birthday. I was born on Thanksgiving Day in 1980. And so that's my family at the table with my grandpa. It's my husband, myself. I hope that's not exactly what I look like, but that's okay. And my children. And then I put my nephews in there as well because my family loves to make it into my books.
Oh, wow.
So those are my nephews that live in California.
Oh, wow. Here's actually, we have this spotlighter that we can use when we share books over Zoom with Caribu. So here, I'll use the spotlighter feature. There you guys are.
Oh, cool.
Kids. It's really nice. This actually looks almost like that famous Norman Rockwell Thanksgiving cover from the Saturday Evening Post. I don't know if you ever have seen that one. And this actually so much of it. And in some ways, I just love it because this is sort of like the new American family in many ways. You know, we have all these blends of traditions in one household, and it's a very beautiful image. So I think it brings back a lot of sort of Americana, but it also reflects your own culture. And I think it's a really special page in the book. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. By the way, I threw in that balloon looks like a light bulb, which is symbolic of my book, The Light Within Me.
Oh, wow.
And then all the animals in the background, if you look in the very background and you can do your zoom, there's a zebra with spots. And I have a book. Yeah. So I have a book called The Zoo's Big News that is coming out at the end of this year.
Oh, that's great.
And it's the story behind my book. Every so often a zebra has spots. It's the story about that zebra and how he comes to be.
Oh, wow. And I see this looks like the Central Park Zoo. Is that kind of plus or minus what this is like or where this is supposed to represent? Or?
So my illustrator went with that. I give the ideas, we go through and I tell him everything I'm envisioning, and then he gives the creativity to it. Okay. So for that one, that was his zoo idea completely. Okay.
Do you have any connection to New York out of curiosity, or is this sort of the illustrator's inspiration?
So my illustrator is in New York, and my mom was born in New York, and my grandfather's from New York originally. One of my sisters lives in New York City, and my sister-in-law lives in Long Island.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, New York, we go there every Thanksgiving, actually.
Nice.
We're there everything's this year will be different, but yeah.
No, I used to live in New York, so I'm sure many kids and many people who have visited New York can relate to these images. So.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for making me aware of that. So this page, I just wanted to show bravery. I wanted to show in the grandfather's life a time that he felt brave. Mm-hmm. And this actually is not, now of course, these are nonfiction, but they're fiction, but they're based off of real things. But my grandfather did not come from Ellis Island, but his ancestors did. Okay. So to Ellis Island, I apologize. So I wanted to show that little boy coming from Europe or wherever he was coming from and how brave he had to be to come to America. This picture on the right is a real picture of my grandma and grandpa.
Wow.
And he made it into an illustration. And the picture in the picture frame is also a picture of my grandma when she was younger.
Those are beautiful photos. Do you know where they were taken or just,
I don't. I have the originals and I don't remember if they're in the back of the book. They were originally going to be in the back of the book.
uh-huh.
One of them, oh, they are at the end. I'll show you. I think the extra pages are
Oh,
in there.
that
So
would
you'll
be
get to see
great.
the original.
Yeah, I love these old photos that so many of us have, of relatives, and they kind of have that glossy silver tone. They're so beautiful.
I
All right,
agree.
let's turn to the next one. All right.
So this page is really important to me, both of these pages actually. So on the left, if you look zoomed in, the name of the street is Maria Avenue. That
Mhm.
was my grandma's name.
Oh,
Um, I was always taught that if you see a feather, it's a symbol from an angel.
oh wow.
So I put a white feather on that bench with him.
Hmm.
And this actually is accurate. My grandfather lost my grandmother 8 years ago. And on the right is that scene with my father-in-law that I had showed him. I remember showing him, and like I said, he said, that doesn't look like me. I'm not old. And it just reinforced what my book is about, that really age is nothing. It's just a number. And we don't feel what we look like. We don't feel what we're turning into. We just feel what we're feeling. We feel what we see and what we internalize from the world. But if you look closely at the domino by my father-in-law's hand,
Hmm.
it's the date. So that's my grandfather. And then to the right by the soda
Hmm.
is a domino that says 4-5. And
Hmm.
that's the date of his passing, April 5th.
All right. It's
So
it's
that was
really
something.
clever how you brought these symbols in, and it does make the book extra powerful in that way. It's really special how all these images and ideas are kind of laid in these illustrations. So I just love that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that one's really special to me. This doesn't have any little secrets. This is just very about it. Basically, I wanted the knowledge, that comparison of knowledge to show that everyone graduates at some point, right? Whether it's kindergarten, whether it's high school, whether it's college, whatever it is, that's going to be the connection between the grandchild and the great grandchild and the great grandfather. So we'll see that later in the book.
Mhm.
And then that there are times when we're scared as adults too. And this was just that he had gotten lost in New York.
Wow, it's really, yeah, it's a really powerful image thinking about how we need to be aware of times where we have knowledge and times where we don't have knowledge, but being able to share that with other people actually helps us grow too. So I think that's really cool. And I think so many kids sometimes are afraid to ask questions or afraid to show when they don't know something. So I just love the vulnerability in both of these images. It's just great. So
Thank you. So the scene on the right is really important to me. My grandfather is the most musical person. When he was bar mitzvah age, his father wanted to buy him a violin, and they went to the music store with the intention to buy a violin, and there were no violins, and they had clarinets. So they just by default bought a clarinet, and my grandpa learned how to play the clarinet, which is sitting there underneath the violin.
right.
And years later, he learned the saxophone. And
Okay.
those are two instruments that he's played. And he also knows the piano. And he actually enforced my mom and my aunt learning piano. And my mom's a piano teacher. She's been for many years. So let's rewind, about 2 or 3 years ago, 89, I think he was 89 at the time. He said, you know what? I want to fulfill the wish that my father had for me.
Uh-huh.
He bought himself a violin online. He went on YouTube and taught himself how to play the violin.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, yep. And to me, like that teaches me never give up, never lose hope. And also that there's no ending. There's no timeline to when you can have a gift. Like I published my first book in 2015. I thought I would publish my first book in my 20s. I was in my 30s when it happened. So really that there's no timeline on things. We have to just enjoy each day as its own.
I love that message. Yeah. And just the idea that you can do anything at any age and you're never too old or never too young or, age doesn't matter when it comes to these dreams. It's really special.
Okay, so this scene on the left makes me cry. So first of all, I love hearts, and I
Oh.
try to throw hearts in every book, and you can look for them in all of my books. You will find a heart and a rainbow in most of my books.
Aw.
My grandparents loved going to Hollywood Beach in Florida. They
Uh-huh.
loved going. And I grew up always like that was it. Grandma and grandpa went to the beach and we would go and they would sit there and they would sit just like that. Or they would sit on the bench and they would just have, my grandpa would have his arm around her. And to me, like I moved back to Florida in 2009 when I was 28, about to be 29. And that year was a blessing in my life. I ended up living with my grandparents and it was right before my grandma got sick.
Okay.
And we went to the beach all the time. And to me, that's like such a strong memory that I have, that I knew that when I was thinking of peace, that that was what needed to be for peace. Like for sure, that was the epitome of what peace is. On the right, like I grew up with my grandparents always making us fruit salads. That was just, even now when I go to visit him in California, he makes me a fruit salad. In the last year, it's changed because he is getting older and he has his own health stuff, but he always makes fruit salads. He always, my children are also experiencing it from him. And so for me, and there's the jupina that I was talking about.
Oh yeah.
I had to throw in that importance of that fruit salad, of them sitting there and just talking over a fruit salad.
Will you tell me a little bit more about the drink? Because I actually don't know that much about it. So tell me about the drink. No.
So I purposely didn't put a label on it because, okay, well, you can't, but a pineapple drink, a pineapple soda. So when we used to go to, I'm going to give a shout out to a restaurant, Pollo Tropical, a Cuban restaurant, fast food Cuban restaurant here in Miami and Boca, or we used to go to Versailles, which is a Cuban restaurant we went to in Miami, or, I mean, there's so many restaurants, okay? Padrino's is another one. So we would always order this pineapple drink, and it was just a delicious pineapple soda, and we weren't allowed to have soda as kids, so like that was a treat. It was like, ooh, grandma and grandpa are giving us pineapple soda.
Oh my gosh. It looks delicious.
So I thought that would be
refreshing.
You should get it. It's so yummy. I don't drink soda a lot, but it's just a yummy drink to have.
No, it looks so refreshing, and it's pretty warm where I am right now, so it looks great. By the way, I can also relate to Hollywood, Florida. My parents like to go there a lot. We went there with some of my grandparents, and it is a very peaceful place on this planet. So I definitely relate to that. Very special, kind of low-key, beautiful beach. So.
That's where I was born. I was born in Hollywood, Florida.
Oh, it's very special.
I went from one Hollywood to another. I went to Beverly Hills, California.
Oh, you got the best of both coasts.
Yep, and then Arizona, and then back here.
Wow, really like tour of the USA. That's good.
Okay, I told you there would be a rainbow. So the fruit salad to the rainbow. So when I was thinking of wisdom from a child's perspective, it was something so simple. And I had many different concepts in my head of what wisdom looks like. But I thought one of them was that simple gesture of just knowing to help that duck out, that duck was stuck. And so he moved the rock to help them, to help them go on their way.
It's so special. Yeah. And kids do notice those little details that sometimes adults are kind of moving along, trying to get everybody into the car. And the kids might be like, oh my gosh, look at that bird, look at that squirrel, look at that duck. And they really do help out the animals a lot.
And to me, that's just innate, right? It's our ability to help others. That to me, that's wisdom. So here I decided that for the family scene for the grandfather, his view was of his aerial view of his family. And I thought, let's zoom in on what the child's view is of what family is. And it wasn't that he was at the table with his whole family. It was at that moment that he was sharing with his grandfather, that his grandfather was giving him a piece of that bread, of the challah. And he was so excited for that. And the pain scene, my son said to me, I've never broken my leg. And I said, it's a fiction book. I wanted to show pain without showing anything really scary. So this was my way of showing pain that, you know, he had to miss out. It hurt emotionally. So he had physical pain, emotional pain, and he was having physical pain because his leg was broken, his ankle or his knee, whatever it was, you know? So that pain can be in different forms.
Wow. Yeah, I love that concept. And I especially love the page of family. Like as we're approaching the Jewish high holidays, I know in our family, you know, my grandmother would always give us her special cookies, or we would make them with her, or sometimes, you know, she would make other special dishes, and just having that special one-on-one time with your grandparents is really, a powerful moment for kids. Like that's what you think of when you reflect on family time and holidays. So it's just
Yeah.
great when grandparents and kids are able to make time for each other and kind of build that relationship. So great, really beautiful image.
Thank you. So it feels like I know how to be brave. So this was a scenario that my son actually really is brave with this. My daughter does not like shots. My son closes his eyes and he just does it. And I was thinking, that's so brave. That's so brave of him. So in that moment, like, something scary might happen, but you were brave. And actually, I'm going to give a little story. Through this quarantine, we decided to teach my children how to bike ride. My son had learned back in November with my father-in-law, actually, and with my husband, and we were in New York freezing our tushies off in the winter. And we decided during this quarantine that we're going to teach them how to bike ride again because he hadn't gone in 6 months and he had only gone that one time.
Mm-hmm.
And both of my children said, I don't believe in myself. I'm scared. I'm going to fall. And that was such a perfect, I'm just making the connection right now. My daughter was so scared and it was my job to focus on my daughter. It was my husband's job to focus on my son. And my daughter learned how to bike ride. And for me, it was like the coolest feeling as a mom to know that I gave her that I gave her that gift that she'll have forever. But she said to me, and I caught it on camera, she said, Mommy, I believed in myself because you told me to.
Oh.
And that was it. And then in the beginning, when she first started, she said, Mommy, I just repeated to myself, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. And that's what got her to do it. So the love scene, that is my husband's dog, Sammy, the white dog in the back, and my dog, Mochi, in the front. And Mochi really did have a heart birthmark. So that was something that I needed in that scene. Mochi's also made it into one of my other books as well.
That is so cute. And I just also love the scene. Like, it just makes me think of those times when you're in the doctor's office and you have the tears, or when you're hugging your teddy bears and just having that comfort, and I think so many kids can relate to these feelings. So.
Thank you. And by the way, love is something that I love, literally. And I find hearts everywhere in my life, everywhere. My kids have now learned to do it. I find heart leaves. I find hearts in nature. I find heart rocks. Like, they're just everywhere. And so I think it's a really wonderful thing to make somebody else aware of as well.
Completely. Yeah. And especially sneaking the extra heart into the hug with the dogs. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you. So I was trying to think of what loneliness feels like to a child. And think of like that time in PE in school where you get picked last, like how you feel when you get picked last. And so for me, that was a good visual of what loneliness can feel like for a child. And then the opposite of it feels like fun when you're playing with your friends who care about you and who you care about. And another thing is, in all of my books, you'll always see mixed cultures. You'll always see children from all different backgrounds. That's something that's really important to me because that's what the world is. And I think it's so important that we focus on that and we see that, especially in children's literature. So I'm saying it because on this page, you can see different backgrounds, different children. I know the main family is based off my family, but I think that's something that's really important as well.
Yeah, and I've been a teacher, and I just love the idea that you have pictures of different kids playing together, boys, girls, playing different types of sports, and definitely it does feel horrible to be the one who they don't pass the ball to, or if you're just having a bad day on the field, you feel kind of left out of the crowd. And it's just special to know for kids that there's so many alternatives too. Like, you don't have to be stuck in one sport. It's great to have lots of options and different friends to check in with. And it's a really, really special page. I think a lot of kids will connect with this.
So there's that knowledge. So he just graduated 2nd grade.
Aww.
My son actually did. He's in 3rd grade now. So I figured I would make it based on what was going on in our lives. So remember, the grandfather was graduating from high school or college. I didn't make it clear purposely, so more people could relate to it. But in this case, this boy was graduating from 2nd grade. And then, as we said before, like, it was scary when he got lost, the grandfather. And in this case, the boy lost his mother in the mall. And so I thought that connection could be made, that the child could realize, oh my gosh, my grandpa or my grandma could be so much like me, that we both can feel scared in times that are so similar.
Yeah, it's really great. And I think kids will really relate to this because it is exciting to graduate even from second grade. And it is scary to lose your parents in a store. It definitely happened more than once in my life. And with so many kids, it's very relatable.
Okay, so this is a really special page for me also. I feel like every page is special. I'm sorry. So this one, my kids are on the playground. In the background is my niece, Naomi. She made it in with my sister pushing her. That's her baby. And actually at the top is one of our good friends, Blair. She's been wanting to get in my books, and this is my 6th book, and I finally said I'm going to sneak her in. So it was a surprise for her birthday. And just about laughter and fun and having fun and how simple, like a simple playground and how much fun a child can have. And I also, laughter is so important in my life and my children's lives. I hope it's important in everyone's life because laughter is the best medicine. And music is a big part of my life. I do not sadly play the piano. My mom, that's actually my mom, the piano teacher in the book. But I figured I would put her in as well. This book was really a very powerful book in my family. And so that's my mom teaching my son piano, which I hope one day will happen. It hasn't happened yet, and she lives in Arizona. But it's just like a special scene. I think that music is such, I see two of my sisters are singers. One of my sisters is an actress. She's a Broadway actress. And I see how powerful music is. And even through, I mentioned before that I'm homeschool teaching, the way that my brain works, like I have that creative brain, is to make up a song if I want to remember something. So I've been teaching my children about sentence structure and about anything, contractions, and it's all through song. I'm making up songs, and that's how they're memorizing it. Yeah. So the beauty of music and the beauty of song. And I just thought that was something that should be in my book as well.
Completely, yeah. And, actually we've been visiting with my grandmother here in Chicago, and we've been singing with her because that helps her remember some of the holiday songs, the holiday greetings, and it's also a way to access her memories. And so with children and with family, songs can have that long-lasting, powerful effect. So I really like how you added music into this scene. It's really special. And playtime. I mean, everybody remembers the fun times as well as all those kind of more powerful, reading and sharing moments. So.
Yes. I love that your grandmother remembered it through song.
Yeah, we've been singing with her, and it's been hard because of coronavirus, so it's been harder to communicate with her. But in our Zoom calls and some of our distant visits with her, we've been able to sing songs, and it's just been very special. So.
That is so special. So this is where I put my father-in-law. I added him in after he had passed. Originally, there was just another poster. I don't remember what was on the wall. And I said to him, I need my father-in-law to be on that poster looking out for my son. Mm-hmm. My father-in-law and my son were best friends. Like, literally, they were best friends. My son called him his best friend. His name was Poppy to my children. And so I wanted to know that my children would have something to remember him in a book physically, mm-hmm. and that my son would know that he's always looking out for him.
Wow.
And peace to me is also prayer. I think that prayer looks like many different things. It doesn't have to look one way. Kind of like mindfulness and meditation. I know that when I go on my bike rides, they are my meditation. I say hello to the ducks. I say hello to the lizards that crawl by. I say hello to the iguanas. I say hello to this one tree that I call it my mindful tree. And there's different ways. And so peace looks like all of that. But in this scene, I wanted to show that peace to this child meant prayer, and that he was just praying. We don't know what he was praying for, right? For the world to be a kind place, we don't know. And I wanted that to provoke thought and conversation.
I just love the picture of, this is your grandfather, right? Here?
That's my father-in-law.
Sorry. I love the picture of your father-in-law and then also him praying. And it very much has this great feeling of like from generation to generation. And also just as you say, like spirituality, mindfulness, and how much the sort of this intergenerational link, we don't know how much that is, in the universe, like how much these forces connect, but it's just special to see them kind of connecting in this image. And it makes you think about the generation that came before and what we can wish for in the future. So it's just really great.
Yes. And that right was actually based on a real picture.
Oh.
I mean, I don't know if it's in the book. I hope it is, but if it's not, when they hug, to me, it melts my soul. When we go visit my grandfather, we go there 2 to 3 times a year. We go to California, and that time is so special to me and so special to my children because they get to be with him physically and in person. And it's hard right now. We're not going there. We're probably not going to go there in December. So that time, those pictures mean everything to me. And I needed that in my book. I needed that hug. I needed that embrace. My grandpa's big hands hugging my son, and just how happy they both are in that moment.
It's really poignant. It's really special. I miss hugs. It makes me miss all the hugs that we can't give right now during COVID. So I just, I feel like if grandparents read this with their kids in the Caribu app, when they do that, they can give each other little virtual hugs.
Yes, completely. I know, hugs are so important. So there is that last scene in the book where they're just agreeing that, life is pretty beautiful. And it doesn't matter your perspective, that it's beautiful for them both, right? Through each of their own eyes, they see life so similarly, and they're so much more connected than they even realized before.
Wow. Yeah, it's just so nice. And again, like that little bit of like kind of love and gesture, just that physical affection. It's so special. And I think that so many families will just love to like see that and connect with it, especially since we can't give so much, physical gestures of affection in this time. So it's a beautiful way to end the story. Do you want to tell us a little bit about some of these pages at the end?
Yeah. So my original books, my first 5 were in board book. And I'm a teacher. I taught in elementary school. I taught in preschools. I taught for 9 years. And I'm a teacher at heart. Like, I just want to help, and I want to help the world be better. And that's really why I do what I do. All of my books are about kindness, love, acceptance, positivity. And I realized that my books have been so much deeper than sometimes what they're looked at. And so last summer, I decided that the teacher in me was going to come out, and I was going to convert all my books from board book to paperback. Mm-hmm. And I was going to provide conversations for parents, for school counselors, for teachers, for whoever's reading these books, for grandparents, for anybody, to have these conversations, that they don't have to think about it on their own, that I'm going to literally give them the conversation starters, and they can use these to start a beautiful conversation and inspire greatness in their grandchildren, in their children, in their students. I say all of that because my books are used in schools as well by teachers and guidance counselors, school counselors. So I wanted to give that. So I just gave conversation starters. What is your favorite thing to be grateful for? What does fun look like to you? I'm kind of skipping around. Do you love to laugh? What is your favorite joke? How do you get your parents to laugh? And just different ways that the child can get inspired. Does that make sense? Just different ways the child could then hopefully turn it into something beautiful in the world and make our future brighter and more positive. So every one of my books now has these inspiration and discussion pages, and then also activity pages, which you'll see ahead as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is just great. So many times we read books and we're not quite sure how to take the next step, and it's great to have these starters. So, all right, activity pages. So cool.
So in most of my books, I think in almost all of them, I always use a gratitude list because I think that is so important and so powerful. Whether it's verbal, whether it's written, it doesn't matter. As long as every day you're focusing on a couple things that you're grateful for, it changes our mindset and it puts us into that positive side, Right now, we're all living through this different time that we're all being challenged in different ways. And I think it's so important that we have to look even at the small things. Like I said, my bike rides. I'm not joking. If anybody watches me on my bike ride, they probably think I'm crazy. I say hi to the iguanas that cross the street. I say hi to the ducks and the geese. There's these beautiful herons in my neighborhood that I stop and I take pictures of them by the lake. And I think it's so important that we look at what is beautiful in our lives and what is positive, and we have to focus on those things because it's so easy to get lost in the negative right now. Mm-hmm. So these pages are even more important right now, at least to me and my children. And I bring up kind self-talk all the time because it's so important to focus on being kind to ourselves as well. Like we were raised, be kind to that child, be kind, share. But you also have to be kind to yourself and look in the mirror and speak kindly to that person inside. So there I gave the opportunity. You can write in the book. The words I am are very powerful words, and whatever comes after is what you're telling your mind. So I gave the opportunity for a child or on Caribu for them to talk about it, right? Kindness rocks are one of my kids' favorite things. Those are actually 2 rocks that I really made and he made into an illustration. So my kids and I love to decorate rocks. And then after we're finished decorating them, we put them around my neighborhood. And it's funny, I wrote a note in the beginning saying, don't pick it up because of COVID. Well, they always got picked up. So they're always taken, and that's fine. Let them be used. So somebody got my You Are Beautiful rock. Somebody got my Be Kind rock. I like to write be kind, do good things in the world, like different sayings that I want people to focus on. So we put them around the neighborhood.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's such a great idea. I just love it. Yeah.
Thank you. So my kids like to paint them also. These were just 2 simple ones that I had made. We like to paint them, and then we let them dry, and then the next day they write on them with markers, and it's like a whole thing. And then we go on an adventure walk, and they put these kindness rocks down and they look for heart leaves. So,
I just love it because it's also a way of just sharing with the neighborhood. It's really special and bringing more people together. So
yeah.
oh, wow. Exercise.
Exercise. Oh my God, exercise is so important. This morning I got in my bike ride. And then again, like I want to inspire these children are our future generation, right? So they are our world. They are our future. And I think it's so important that we tell them how important they are as individuals and how they can make a difference in this world. So exercise is to clear your brain, but I also wanted to talk about how will you change the world and get them to start thinking about it. Just get those conversations started so that they have that in their mind and it becomes something important to them, that as they grow up, that remains hopefully important to them and that they feel inspired to do something positive to make this world better.
Something to take away from the book and bring it up,
Yeah.
bring it into their own lives. Yeah. Wow. I love this page. Oh my goodness.
This was something I added. I don't normally have this in my books, but because this was about life, I was like, oh my God, I have to give rules to live a beautiful life. And some of these will be overlapped and you'll see them I have 2 books currently being produced. One is The Zoo's Big News, like I mentioned before, and that's the story behind my book, Every So Often a Zebra Has Spots. And the other book is the ABCs to a Mindful Life. And so some of these are in that book as well. Never Give Up. That one, my daughter and my son were just saying over and over when I taught them how to bike ride. I repeat that to them constantly. And actually, I have a cute little story. I was trying to open a Ziploc that I had put in the freezer with some frozen strawberries. My kids like smoothies. And I couldn't get the Ziploc open. And I was like, oh, forget it. And I put it back in the freezer. Oops, sorry. I put it back in the freezer. And my son came in and he goes, what? You never give up. And he got it for me and he made me open it. And to me, I was like, who taught you that? And he said, you. And that was like one of the winning moments of being a mom, when they give me back what I taught them.
That's a fantastic story. Oh my goodness. I love it.
Yeah, that one made me laugh because he was 7 at the time. And I was like, okay, you're right. Fine. Thank you for reminding me. And it's good. It teaches them also that like, we are not perfect. I mess up all the time. And my daughter will say something and I'm like, I'm learning also. Like, I'm not perfect. I'm an adult, but I'm also still a human and I still make mistakes, right? So I think that's also really important. That page is really beautiful. So I hope that people read that page.
Yeah.
And then I won't go so much into this, but people can read that as well. Oh, there's that picture I was telling you about. The original is on the left and the drawing is on the right.
Wow. It's really special just to even have those photos around. And I love how you represented them in the book.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted my grandma to be in this book as well. It was something really important to me. And here are some real pictures. That was the middle picture on the top is the moment when my grandfather first met my son.
Wow.
My grandma had just passed away a few weeks before. And that moment, I remember not being able to control myself. I was so emotional. And the love from both of them was just so real that makes me emotional. The picture on the right, on the top, was originally what I was going to make my book. It was originally going to be about my daughter and my grandfather, because my daughter's named after his mother and his wife. But the bond that he has with my son was so strong that I had to change it.
Okay.
He has that bond with my daughter as well, but I don't know how to describe it. When we go to California, like, they're just drawn to each other, my son and my grandpa. So I had to make it about that. The ones on the left are both my grandfather at different ages.
Wow.
The one in the middle bottom is my father-in-law when he was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And the one on the right is my grandma and grandpa. So this page on the right is really more for the parents, grandparents. They can read it. It's just really to focus on how the world has changed, and it probably will change for a while. But as much as there's so much negativity, and I'm speaking as somebody who lost someone personal to me, there is so much that came out of this that is so special. I said to my daughter the other day, because my daughter and I were laying in bed, and she said, I wish Corona was over. And I said, well, baby, let's think about it. Like, you would be back in school and you would just be seeing mommy again in the afternoons. And maybe that's what you want. Like, and I just said to her, I'm like, let's look at what has come out of this that's good. I said, you're now home with mommy. I'm teaching you at home. I said, if you could pick, what would you pick? And she said, I would pick to stay home with you. And I said, so let's look at those things. Like, let's look at those blessings that we've been given. Like, I feel like I've been given time with my children that I wasn't getting before. They were in school, dropped off at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then they wouldn't come home till 4 o'clock, 4:30. And so there are so many blessings. It's hard because my family's spread out all around the country, California, New York, Arizona. And so I'm not seeing like my sisters. I'm not seeing my mom, my dad. But for our core family, I have to tell you, my grandpa sends videos all the time now. We're speaking now more than we do normally throughout the year. It's nice. My sisters and I, we do a Zoom chat once a week. We try to. I have 3 sisters. And so we're making do with what we have. But I wrote this part of the book really for people to become aware of there are blessings among the things that are going on that aren't so wonderful.
Yeah, definitely finding those silver linings. It's really nice that you shared that letter. I'm sure so many people will just, love to read about, the way that you're coping and the way that you guys have found blessings during this time.
Thank you. And the silver lining, I have a book that I'm writing called The Silver Lining.
Wow.
So that's funny. It's still very new and it probably won't be out for a long time, but, and then this is my final dedication page that I just had to do one more, showing the importance of both of them in my life. My grandpa, I said it in the beginning, my grandpa, so I wrote poetry. That's what got me through high school. That's what got me through college. Like, since I was young, I've been writing poetry. And my grandpa has always been, I really can say, my number one fan. My number one. He's always had time to read my poetry. He's always had time to read my short stories. He's always had time to support me and he's always told me that I'm such a beautiful writer. And even if I wasn't, he made me feel confident. And so that is so special. And my father-in-law, I knew him for 11 years. 11 happens to be one of my lucky numbers. I only knew him for 11 years, but in those 11 years, he became a father to me and very special. And we had deep conversations always. Like we would bicker over things because he was a Holocaust survivor. He was 5 years old when he was put into a ghetto. And I'm very emotional and very spiritual. And I'm very sensitive. And he would say, don't be so sensitive, be a little tougher. But it was based on what he grew up with. Like he grew up where his father was taken away right away. And, he just had to make do. So we learned a lot from each other. And so it was really important to me to give this back to him.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing so many details in the book and from your family's life. Everything really resonates. As we wrap up, are there any other messages that you want to share with the readers and with our audience about something to take away from the book, or something to look for when they read together, or something to discuss when they read with their grandchildren?
Yeah, so I think it's just so important that we realize the beauty of life in general, right? The word life, it's such a short word and it means so much. And it's really all our perspective. I think it's so important that before we judge someone else, I'm going to go on a different topic, but before we judge someone else for what they're going through or how they are acting, we have to remember that we are all living our lives in our own ways. We're all seeing the world through our own two eyes, through our own experiences. And for that connection between a grandfather and a grandchild, I think it's so important that the child see that, oh my gosh, my grandpa also feels those things. That, oh, we both feel love in different ways, but we're both feeling that emotion. We're both feeling happy. We're both feeling scared, but we're seeing it through our own ways. But to make that connection and to have that connection, and also to realize that age really is just a number. It really is. It's just a number. It has no significance to, yes, we obviously gain more knowledge through our experiences in life, but I'm 39 and I don't feel 39. I'm about to turn 40. I don't feel like I'm going to be 40. Like I remember when I was younger, 40 seemed so old. But what do I feel? I don't really know what I feel. I don't feel 20, right? So that's why I've learned that age is really just a number and we cannot give so much importance to it. We have to just be thankful for every day that we wake up, every family member, every blessing we have in our lives. And I just think it's so important that we value those things, that we appreciate those things. And I don't know, that was something that I guess that's what stands out to me from this book, that we value the people in our lives and we also value our views and our perspective of the world as well and honor that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's such a beautiful message. And I just, I hope that as the pandemic continues and as we move into the fall, that people are able to find those moments of beauty and focus on their relationships, whether they're able to meet in person or connect online, read books with Caribu. And I think that making moments of beauty is what's going to sustain us and help us maintain those relationships going forward. So thanks again so much for sharing this book and for sharing your story. And also want to wish you a happy holiday and happy Hispanic Heritage Month as you celebrate all the different parts of your identity. And
Thank you as well.
Yeah, and I hope that we can speak some more about other books going forward. So
yes, I would love to. I just feel blessed. I have to say, I'm going to add one more thing.
Yeah.
This really started out as, so I created this company. Here I have my shirt, the Bee Books. I started it kind of organically. My first book, Be Who You're Meant to Be, the one that's in English and Spanish, I wrote as a poem for my son for a photo album. And my husband said to me, I know it's your dream to publish books. Like, let's do it. And I said, oh my gosh, and I'm a perfectionist. So when it came to like looking for illustrators, it had to be perfect. It had to be what my dream was, my vision, because I'm not the illustrator, but every single page in these books are my ideas. And then he makes them magical.
Wow.
And so it just kind of happened. That first book happened. I found this illustrator who I loved. He's in New York. And he's been my illustrator ever since. And we've grown together and he understands like the process of what I like. He's so talented. He's unbelievably talented. And the second book, You Are a Superhero, came out soon after. And little by little, every book has just come out. Some I wrote over the course of 5 minutes. Love Grows Love, I wrote in 5 minutes. It just came out. And other books like my zebra book was literally written in 2006 and it didn't come out till 2016. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's just what makes me so happy is seeing what these are doing for children and what these are doing for families and what it's doing for our world. And I just feel so honored that people are enjoying them. And to me, that's what it's all about, is enjoying them and living by the values that I'm trying to instill into people. So I just want to say thank you, I guess. Thank you for loving this book. Thank you for loving all my books. Thank you for sharing them with others. And I'm so grateful.
So I just want to say thanks again for joining us and for sharing your story with us. And I just want to wish you a happy holiday.
Thank you so much to you and your family as well.
Bye.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye.